Hello? I heard this story once about two kids fighting over an orange. I want it, I want it. Nobody was willing to give an inch. No compromise was possible. Now, this went on for a few minutes until a parent got irritated and solved the problem. Took a knife, cut the orange in half. Fair and square, right? No. The kids were in tears. They threw away the pieces. This is useless. Now, in a parallel universe, the parent was more patient. He asked, why? Why do you guys want this orange? The first kid was preparing a recipe for which he needed exactly one glassful or one orange worth of juice. The second kid, she was working on an artwork and she needed the peel of one orange. Once we knew the problem, the solution was obvious, wasn't it? Now, this story is made up, obviously, but this situation is way more common than you would think. Now, in school, we learn to carefully examine a problem before providing a solution. But in life beyond school, this principle is very quickly forgotten. And this shows up everywhere. I live in Palo Alto, and the other day, a friend showed up, very excited. Ashish, let's buy an apartment in Dubai. He had done all the research, right? Oh, I know the broker, I know how to do the money transfer, I know the taxation, I know the paperwork. The whole thing, he had figured it out. I just asked one question. Why should we buy an apartment in Dubai? He had thought about that too. Well, I know it's risky and it's complicated, but money, 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 right? I think this thing can double in no time. All right, I said. So we are just looking for a high risk, high return investment. Surely there are more options. He paused, got him thinking. He went back, came back in a couple of days. You know, Ashish, I think you're right. Actually, I like other ways of doing that part. You know, I'm in Palo Alto, I can just invest in some tech startups. But, he said, there's always a but, right? You know that. But he said, startups are right here in California. Dubai is international. Great insight. You know what was going on there, right? He had a solution in hand. And it's very hard to let go of it. He was desperately searching for a problem that fit his solution. So I pressed him again. I said, okay, we want to diversify our investments outside of America. But look at this map. North America is a very large place. And the discussion went on. Look, the point, of course, is not whether buying an apartment in Dubai is a good or not good thing. The point is that we were chasing a solution without establishing what problem we were trying to solve. And once we realized that, once we set a goal, the path to that goal was easier to figure out. We had a very productive debate after that. Now, talking of productive debates, I'm the founder of a tech startup right here in Palo Alto, literally called Productiv. And I'm also an investor in a few dozen startups. And this story plays out almost every day. If we are lucky, then it just wastes a few hours in which we are chasing a wrong solution before we figure out this is the wrong path. But in often enough cases, this results in complete disaster. Let's back up though. This is Silicon Valley. There is a startup born almost every minute. Seems like that. I imagine many of you have or will start a company. And here is how that usually plays out. Right? Somebody gets excited about a technology or a problem they are observing in their personal life. They talk to a friend, find a co-founder, even find an investor, raise some money, build a product, maybe even get some early customers. All good, right? Everything is hunky-dory. Well, 98% of startups fail. That part we know. I think you have heard of that part. What's new, likely, is that most of them fail for a single reason. Almost half, 42% of them fail because they have a solution for which they cannot find enough customers who have a problem that their solution solves. We don't hear these stories. These are not famous because most of these products die naturally. But we do hear of some. Remember NFTs? Remember early days of Bitcoin? Very cool technologies, but solutions looking for problems. They were simply not solving something that everyday people needed when buying artwork or dealing in regular currency. The street is full of these. Silicon Valley, billions of dollars wasted, dozens, hundreds of startups dying, not showing up on that board of successful ones. They all end up here. A sad face with saying, what's the problem we are trying to solve? And the fix is simple. Ask this question often and early, before spending a lot of time and effort in building a solution or in chasing a solution. Which brings us to the final comment on this thing. It's important to ask this question, sure. But what if the answer is, we don't know? That happens. Is that okay? Yes, that's okay. There are many cases where we are just trying to experiment. We are building solutions without knowing a problem. As long as we know that that's the path we are choosing, the path which will have a lot of failures, the path will require persistence, maybe resources, patience. It's a familiar path too. A lot of big innovations have come this way. More recently, I was looking at a friend of mine wearing a smartwatch. What's this? The 10th version, 10th year of smartwatches probably. I remember the early days when they came in, many years. They were a solution looking for a problem. They were not really useful. Eventually, we found use cases where smartwatches are useful. And it's not just smartwatches. From early days of internet to personal computer, even aeroplanes, a lot of innovations have walked down this path. Solutions came first, and problems appeared later. And it's not just in those big innovations. In personal life, it shows up too, everywhere, right? And sometimes we just want to build something. We don't know why. We just want to experiment. Probably we are just trying to scratch an itch. And yes, that's the answer, isn't it? The problem we are trying to solve is scratching an itch. And that's perfectly fine. Look, whether it's conflict resolution or investments or experimenting or problem solving in a very structured fashion in a company environment, light bulbs or oranges, all paths are okay. Just as long as we remember to ask why we are doing what we are doing. What's the problem we are trying to solve? Thank you.